Walaikum salam.
Assalamu alaikum. Just want to remind everyone to please silence their devices. We are live at the moment.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah. Asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya 'alas salah. Hayya 'alas salah. Hayya 'alal falah. Hayya 'alal falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah.
Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkelu alayhi. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu amma ba'd. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Brothers and sisters, before getting into the theme of the Khutbah today, I ask that we remember our brothers and sisters throughout this ummah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu who may be suffering, whether we know the reason for that suffering and distress or not. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us dua to make a difference in the lives of each other, our own lives, and to improve the life of the people in this world, especially those who are submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so I ask, and this has been kind of a constant ask of the congregation, to make dua for the Rohingya people of Burma, formerly Myanmar, and that the people, the Rohingyas, are people who have been completely expelled from their homes and their properties taken. They have been citizens, the Muslim Rohingyas have been citizens of this country now of Burma from the time almost of the inception of the country itself in the 9th century. We had the Rohingya living in this area. But now they've been driven out by the government. And now we know that millions of Rohingya people are living scattered across the world, in that part of the world. Many of them living on an island, just abandoned to an island and can't leave this island. More of them are living in the country of Bangladesh. And Bangladesh is not known for being a wealthy country, and those millions of Rohingya that are living there are living in very squalid conditions in camps. And then the latest United Nations reports about the condition of the Rohingya people in Bangladesh. They say that the overwhelming majority are starving to death. That the Rohingya, the healthy men and women, are not allowed to work. And they're living off of the equivalent of 24 cents a day. And starvation has become the plight, the condition of so many of these people who are without citizenship of any country. They're landless, they have no citizenship. Many of them have been placed on boats and told, just go out into the ocean and see whether you can come across someone or some place that would take you in. Brothers and sisters, let us remember our brothers and sisters in Niger, in Sudan. Anywhere where there is a conflict where Muslims are fighting each other, or whether or not kuffar, those disbelieving people, are causing the suffering of the Muslims and not coming at the hands of other Muslims. Let us remember our brothers and sisters in this ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Brothers and sisters, a few right during the time, and I think it was actually on Eid al-Adha day, we had talked about how a state representative in the House, state House representative in the state of Connecticut, Miriam Khan, was attacked by a man who physically brutalized her on the property of the Islamic Center there in Hartford, Connecticut. That I had mentioned that Sister Miriam was picked up and slammed on the concrete driveway. And this is on Eid Day. And the unfortunate thing, and I'll mention it very quickly again, is that there were so many Muslim brothers who were outside of that parking lot and who were inside and heard her screams as she tried to escape this man. And only one Muslim came to her defense and pulled this brute off of our Muslim sister. And then when the police finally came around, they took the brother who stopped the assault and put him into custody. And I just want to do just a follow-up to this very quickly. I spoke with Sister Miriam, I think it was yesterday. And she is so traumatized by this event that she is seeking therapy, psychological therapy, that in her head, she said that this bothers her, it haunts her to see Muslims who know her, that she grew up in this Islamic center. They know her, they know her family that attends the center. But yet, when it was time to defend these Muslim sisters, that brothers just stood around and watched as if they didn't see and understand what was going on. So let us remember sisters like Sister Miriam, remember any of our Muslim sisters who found themselves in conditions where they're being insulted or assaulted. And they don't have a strong hand, they don't have someone to stand up for them, especially on the property of the masjid. Brothers and sisters, I'm not going to take much of your time today, but I want to talk about something that oftentimes is a missing ingredient in our practice of Islam. That no one who understands the responsibilities and duties of a Muslim would say that it's not necessary for me to make salah. No Muslim in his right mind that understands anything about his deen will say, it's not necessary for me to fast during the month of Ramadan, even though I'm physically capable of doing it. It's not necessary, even though I have money that I've saved over a 1 year period, a 12-month period. It's not necessary for me to pay zakat. It's not necessary for me to make the Hajj and most importantly, it's not necessary for me to bear witness to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and govern my life according to this declaration that I'm making that my Lord is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'll submit and follow the example, the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But for you and I on any given day, it takes more than just to say that I submit to these things, I believe in these things. There's something called sacrifice that each and every one of us, in order to follow the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to follow the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's not just going to come easy. It's going to take a degree of sacrifice, even in discharging the most basic responsibilities that you and I have as Muslims. Brothers and sisters, look at those 25 prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of in the Quran. Look at their various degrees of sacrifice to have an example for those who are turning to them for guidance. Look at the sacrifices that they made, feasibility. Look at the Prophet Nuh, alayhi salam. You know his story better than I. A man that preached to his people for 950 years and he didn't even get. Allah did not decree that even his family members, that all of his family would even listen. That all of his family members after 950 years did not submit to this guidance. And Nuh, alayhi salam, on so many different levels had to sacrifice his self-identity, what he thought about himself, the love that he had for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be patient, to complete his mission, whether not a single individual listened to his call of submission to Allah or not. It didn't matter. That was his sacrifice as the leader of the people of this time. Look at the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam as we read the Quran, as we read the prophetic sayings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam about the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. What we find is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us an example of a prophet that his entire life from childhood was one, and not just taking the easiest course of action. Standing up against the people in which he lived, standing against his father as a child who was the idol maker of the town, not backing down and being cast into a fire. The Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, that every aspect of his leadership of the Islamic movement at that time was one that was couched in the sacrifice to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Look at the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's example. And we find that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam provides us a clear, perfect example of what it means to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to follow his sunnah, to follow his example. Look throughout his prophetic life, and you'll find that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that his example shows us that it takes sacrifice, it takes courage, but it takes sacrifice in every aspect of our lives to complete and have a completion of our deen. Brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Quran a kind of mantra, and not just to the prophets or to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a kind of stanza, a kind of repeated goal and ideal for everyone who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the last day, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which involves sacrifice. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's contained in the Quran to say, "Inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin." That surely, excuse me, surely my prayer, my service of sacrifice, my life and my death are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Lord of the world. Brothers and sisters, look at when this ayah, how the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam fulfilled this call for believers. When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam received this ayah, this revelation from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how did he fulfill it? What was his salat about? You and I know that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the occasions when we look into the seerah, like at the time of one of the battles, the Ghazas, that he led the Muslims in combat against the disbelieving people, what was his attitude on this one occasion when he overslept Fajr because of the day before activity? And he said to Bilal, "Why, oh Bilal, you called the adhan. Why didn't you wake me up?" And Bilal was reported to have said, "I overslept myself." The Prophet Muhammad was upset that in this context of leading the Muslims, the believers in battle, that he had overslept this one time for Fajr. And not only was he disappointed in himself before he knew that Bilal had overslept as well, he's asking him, "Well, why did you wake me up? You know I don't miss getting up. No matter how tired I am, I don't miss it, Bilal. Why didn't you get me up?" The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in this component, this part of the ayah of my prayer, everything is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's nothing that I do related to this deen that is not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I want to just read a very short hadith. And where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is narrated by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's wife, Aisha, radiyallahu anha. And she said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would stand in prayer during the night until his feet would swell. Aisha, radiyallahu anha, would ask, "Why do you do this, O Messenger of Allah, when Allah has already forgiven your past and your future faults?" The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam responded, "Should I not then be a grateful slave?" That Aisha radiallahu anha was reminding the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're standing into Hajj at night, every night, until your ankles swell. Why do you put yourself through this? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised you that your past and your present have already been forgiven. So why are you doing this? And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's response was just simply, should I be an ungrateful servant? Should I be ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How much do you and I sacrifice our beds for sleep and the last portion of the night to get up and to pray the Tahajjud Salat? And if and when we get up to pray Tahajjud, which was an every night event for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how long do we stand in Tahajjud? Do we do it until our ankles swell? Do we do it until we feel like we're going to pass out? Do we do it when so many narrations of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam talk about Sahaba and Sahabiyah who would do everything they could to stand up to the extent of tying a rope on the ceiling or what they could tie on a tree or whatever to be able to hold on to keep from passing out for praying to Hajj at night. Brothers and sisters, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu the ayah talks about the Salat. It talks about the fasting. It's found in a narration in the Sahih of Imam Khalid, the Messenger of Allah, and this is narrated by Anas ibn Malik. The Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, sometimes would not fast during certain months, to such an extent that we would think that he would not observe fast at all during that month. And sometimes he would continuously fast to such an extent that we would think he would not omit any day of fasting in that entire month. His actions were such that whoever wished to see him performing prayer at night could do so, and whoever wished to see him sleeping could do so as well. Brothers and sisters, we go on and on about the various examples of the Prophet Muhammad by sacrificing everything he had for the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the Prophet Muhammad, when he looked at his responsibility and as his duties as the leader of this ummah, that it was nothing for the Prophet Muhammad to sacrifice his physical self, his being, for the purpose of teaching others, explaining to others about their responsibilities to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Brothers and sisters, the responsibilities that we have to sacrifice everything we do, Allah, serves as a reminder to all of us that our days, our nights, should not be filled with anything other than the consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what we are doing is for the pleasure of our Lord. All praise is due to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His assistance against the evils of our minds, against the unsuccessfulness of our actions. Whomsoever Allah guides, no one can lead astray. And whoever goes astray as a result of his or her own actions, no one can guide. For Allah help those who help the religion of Muhammad and countless amongst them. For Allah disappoint those who try to disgrace the religion of Muhammad and will not make us complain. Brothers and sisters, the question that I think helps put where we are on the scale of personal measurement, where am I as it relates to following the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad as it relates to having an understanding of the degree of time, resources, of energy. Where am I on this scale that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, that everything that we do should be, everything we sacrifice should be for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And once we come to this realization, once we focus on this fact, then we'll realize that whatever we sacrifice, no matter what we donate in sadaqah, no matter what we do to help other people, that no matter what we do, how many times we make to Hajj at night, no matter how meticulous, how much we focus on making sure that we make our 5 prayers a day within the prescribed times, that there's nothing that we can do that is not counted on our record, that everything that we do is to benefit our own souls. Muslims, we are very selfish people. No matter how generous we are with our money, with our time, with our energy, with anything, we're very selfish, and that's the bottom line, because we're doing it for our own souls. We're doing it for the benefit of our own souls. Every sacrifice that we make is a benefit for our own souls. The person that you may assist in whatever you're doing, that person may get a worldly benefit, but the person given is getting much more than the person who's receiving. Every sacrifice we make for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is just preparing us for this meeting with Allah, that when we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah's rahmah, that His mercy will be such that even though we don't deserve Jannah, we don't deserve it. It's very clear in the prophetic literature that no one through their actions alone will get Jannah. It's only through the rahmah of Allah. So if I know this, how can I just be so lackadaisical? How can I be so lazy in just doing just simple things that we know that we're going to be questioned about on Qiyamah? How can I be lazy when it comes to making my salah in the prescribed time every day, when I know that the Prophet Muhammad said that the first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will inquire, will bring the record forth? Let's see what you did, saying you're a believer. See what you did as it relates to making salah. And the Prophet Muhammad has made it clear that there be unfortunate Muslims who were so lazy about sacrificing their time in making salah just for a few minutes out of each day, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the declaration that there's no need to go any further, drag this person off to Jahannam. That he or she didn't discharge the most basic, fundamental requirement that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given all of us a duty and responsibility to Him. So, brothers and sisters, if we are to sacrifice anything about our time, our resources, anything related to us, there's no greater sacrifice that we can make than to sacrifice feasibility. Do something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Rasulullah have made clear that this is something that is good. It's for your record. Have the right intention. Your niyyah is good. And you perform this act. Our niyyah is good. It should be good every time we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in salam. So what does that mean? Part of what does that mean? That means that, as the Prophet Muhammad said, that some of us make salat like a chicken, like a hen, pecking corn off of the ground, that we're up and back so fast. We go from into sajda and come up out of sajda and back in qiyam so fast. It's like a chicken pecking corn off of the ground. That's no sacrifice that we're making. It would mean that we're just going through the motion. Let's see how fast and quickly I can get this thing over with so I can go back to doing what I was doing before. Brothers and sisters, let us slow down in our busy days, in our busy schedule, and recognize that what we're doing in ibadah, that everything that we do that is consistent with the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad is a part of ibadah. If I'm telling people about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to try to show off about what I think I know about Islam, but sincerely wanting to say something that Allah would use what we're saying to help bring someone to Islam, then how can I not be sincere in talking to others about Islam and the benefits that we know we get, that if Allah uses any one of us through our example, through our words, through our persistence, if He uses any one of us to help bring others to Islam, the reward is so great, like 100 red camels, or in today's equivalency, like 100 Chelseas or 100 Mercedes-Benz or whatever we value and attach the most value to transportation today. Then all of this comes just with having sincere intention in what we do and having this work be bordered by the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, having guardrails to our actions and doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded and following the Sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So let us not take anything for granted as it relates to this practice of Islam. Let us not think for any moment that we're going to be able to talk our way into Jannah, and that we're going to be able to fake our way what we do on a day-to-day basis, and we're going to be able to fake it and be able to make it to Jannah. That the ingredients that we have to keep in front of us and to discharge is making sacrifices for that which we say we believe, and not just having words come out of our mouths or occasionally doing something that people would interpret that we are sincere Muslims, when in fact we may just be doing something so that others can think that we're good people, and that brother is a good brother, that sister is a good sister, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows even our intentions, not just our outward actions. Oh Allah, give us an understanding of this deen that is beneficial for us in this world and in the next. Oh Allah, help us to be sincere, purify our deeds and our intentions so that we will be those who win your favor on the Qiyamah. And oh Allah, make not the enemies of Islam, make us the object of test for the disbelieving people. Brothers and sisters, I have a few very quick announcements. The first one is that there will be a janazah